quilt and to live with confidence. Y'all, I am so excited to be back with you today. Today, we're going to be talking about notions for free motion quilting. But before we jump into that, let me hop over and make sure that this is streaming. Make sure that y'all can see me. So as you are hopping on, do me a favor and say hi in the comments so that I can see that you're here. And if you have a friend that you think would enjoy this video, let me make sure that I'm all muted. If you have a friend that you think would enjoy this video, tag her, all the good things, all right? And I'm going to hit share and make sure that this pops over into the Quilting Rockstars Facebook group so that y'all can join us over there as well. And it looks like my image is a little grainy again this week. So just be patient with me while I check on that too, okay? A little bit grainy, but we're going to be mostly on slides, so we're going to roll with it, okay? Welcome. I am so glad that you're here. Again, if you're joining me live, or even if you're watching the replay, please say hi in the comments so that I know that you're here. I love the opportunity to greet you guys. We're going to be talking about notions for free motion quilting. Now, this could also very easily be titled Things to Put in the Stocking of a Quilter, right? It's that time of year. These are great stocking stuffer ideas, and most, if not, I think everything that we talk about today, hey Sue, everything we talk about today is going to be over on my Amazon Picks page. So under the caption of this video, you'll see a couple of links. The first is a blog post about needles and thread. That's what I get asked about most often. So I've got that information kind of put together for you into a nice, neat blog post. You'll find my Amazon Picks page. So these are sewing notions and tools that you can find available on Amazon. Some of my favorites that are listed there. Hey, Rita. Hey, Francie Joe. I'm so glad to see you guys. And then finally, you'll see the link for the waiting list for the Free Motion Quilting Academy, which we'll get to in just a little while. So I'm going to go ahead and pop these slides up for you guys. And we are going to flip it the other way. We're going to go ahead and take a walk through notions for free motion quilting, okay? So in this mini workshop, I'm going to talk you through the tools you need for free motion quilting. I think you'll be pleasantly surprised to find that you don't need as many things as you think. By the end of our time together, you will know the supplies you need in order to successfully free motion quilt and hopefully have some peace about what you don't need, right? I find that we tend to think we need all the things, but that's really not true. You really just need a few things, and every foot or marking implement, based pen, book, all of those things can add just clutter to your quilting journey, right? And so my job here today, hey Loretta, hey Darius, I know I'm not entirely sure why it's fuzzy, Sue. I need to get Hubster to troubleshoot, but the slides hopefully will be nice and clear like they were last time, and I will get Hubster in here to do some troubleshooting. I'm going to get this pulled up on my phone so that I can see your lovely comments over here in real time. I know you're a gadget girl, Sue, and that's an important thing to talk about, right? Some of you guys are gadget people, right? And that's awesome. Like with everything I share with you guys, if we are different on this, I'm not a huge gadget person. That's awesome. It's a good thing. I like for there to be variety in our community. We need people who are not super gadgety like me, and we need people who are super gadgety like Sue. Right? That means that I'm going to help you see the simplicity of free motion quilting. I'm going to help you see how to get started with as little as possible, how to be scrappy about it, how to not feel like you have to shell out an arm, a leg, your firstborn child, and an entire room in your house in order to have success with free motion quilting. And Sue will have all the answers on how to use all the gadgets that I don't have. Right? So that kind of push-pull is an awesome thing, Sue. So lean into that too, okay? But for those of you that are here and you're thinking, I want to learn free motion quilting, but I need, the big machine and the fancy things and all of that, and that's too much, I feel overwhelmed. I'm going to show you just how simple it can be to get started, okay? Oh, hey, Ivy. So you don't need all the things. This is very good news. I'm sorry. That pun was just too funny, not to use. I just couldn't handle it. It's a lot simpler than you think, babe. And I'm going to show you exactly what you need to get started. And as I just mentioned, there's plenty of folks inside the Quilting Rockstars that can show you how to use all the fancy things as well. And sometimes I like to use the fancy things, but you don't have to get started there. And that's the key thing to remember, okay? I know it's so fun to look for stuff, Sue. I know. Having all the things, though, can bog you down with cluttery distractions, while having just the right supplies frees you up to quilt with confidence, right? I don't want you to feel overwhelmed. This is the same conversation that we've begun having around fabric, right? I don't want you to feel overwhelmed by your stuff. I don't want your stuff to own you. I don't want your quilting to own you. I want you to own it, right? I want quilting to serve you as something that's fun and enjoyable and accessible, not one more thing that adds stress to your life, right? Quilting, as we all know, is an investment, right? Like we're investing our time, we are investing money. We do need some things, but we don't have to start with all the things, right? All right. So first up, what actually do you need? Okay, Holly, and if I don't need all the things, like what do I need? Let's go through and take a look at this, okay? You need a sewing machine. And it is incredibly likely that your current sewing machine is exactly the machine that you need, right? It needs to be in good working order. It needs to be recently serviced, cleaned out, all of that. These are things we're going to continue talking about around here. But as that brief overview, just making sure that it's in good working order. It does not need to be super fancy. Love me a beautiful Bernina or a nice big old Juki. Those are great machines. But honestly, my first free motion quilting experience was on an old off-the-shelf Kenmore, like the $97 Kenmore. Was it a great free motion quilting experience? No, but it got me started, right? My next and the majority of my free motion quilting experience was on a $250 Singer that I bought on Amazon, right? It's only recently that I've begun working on a much bigger machine. And so it's important for you to understand that the machine you have can probably get the job done, especially in these early stages of your quilting journey. Far too often I hear like, I want to learn free motion quilting, but I don't want to have to buy a new machine, or I can't afford a new machine, or I don't have space for a new machine, or whatever, right? And truly start with what you have. I've had amazing quilters go through Free Motion Quilting Academy on everything from very vintage machines to very fancy machines, right? We've run the gamut. It's very rare that your machine will not be able to get the job done. Now, where you will run into issues, though, is if your machine has not been recently serviced, cleaned, oiled, all those things. So make sure that you've, pampered your baby a bit. Free motion quilting is hard work, right? It's just like we warm up before we exercise. Your machine needs a little bit of pampering to warm it up. But other than that, you should be good to go. Hey, Kimberly, I'm so glad you're here. Hey, Kathy. A presser foot, okay? So you've got your piecing foot. You are going to need a free motion quilting foot. So I have a couple of different ones. Most standardly, what you're going to find, y'all won't be able to see this super well in the tiny image, but it's a hopping foot, right? You've got this little plastic piece. Sometimes it's metal. It's a circle. The needle goes inside the circle, and it can glide on the surface of your quilt, right? This allows you to quilt omnidirectionally. So where a piecing foot is designed to work with your feed dogs to keep things in a straight line, a quilting foot allows you to move all over the place, right? And that obviously is important for free motion quilting. Now, please don't ask me exactly what foot you need. I can tell you it's a general hopping foot in all likelihood. If you have a fairly standard machine, you can probably order one for like less than $10 on Amazon. Like, not even joking. I thought this was going to be a super expensive investment piece, and I think this one cost me $4. Just saying. But please don't ask me, especially if you have an upper end machine, exactly what foot you need. I don't know. I'm not a machine expert, as convenient as that would be, right? So check your manual, check with your dealer, check with your local service person if you have any questions about things like shank height and how that translates to finding a foot. But in general, pretty standard basic foot for your, basic average machine, you're going to be able to find very affordably on Amazon, which is very, very good if you ask me, right? And y'all, as I'm like blazing through this, feel free to interject comments and questions. We'll have an official question time, but I like to hear your lovely voices as I'm going along as well. Lets me know that you're there, okay? Needles. So there's a lot of word on the street about this one. Personally, I reach for a size 14 universal needle. It's easy, it's accessible, it's affordable. I can change it frequently and not feel like it's super expensive or super hard to find, right? Now, if that gives you trouble, you could go up to a size 16. If you're worried about the puncture in your fabric, you could use a ballpoint. If you are having issues with your threads, you could try something like a top stitch needle that has a bigger eye on it. The eye is the hole the thread goes through, right? I've even heard about, and Sue, I think this was you who mentioned it, low friction needles that are like especially coated metal so that they really glide in and out of that fabric, right? Again, there's lots of fancy options here. But so far, out of our machine, our presser foot, and our needle, it's likely the only thing you don't have hanging around is the foot, right? A size 14 universal needle, it's pretty likely you've got one of those floating around or could get one pretty easily. That's what I love about keeping it scrappy, right? Just it makes it easy, makes it accessible. So basic needle to get you started and thread. Now, I will tell you on pretty much anything I talk about today, I don't care what brand it is. I don't care if it's a Kenmore or a Bernina. I don't care if it's a rando needle brand or the fancy needle brand. I don't care what kind of foot you have, whether it's, an off the shelf or it's a special branded foot. But when it comes to thread, I am extremely monogamous. Okay. If I'm going to splurge on a specific brand with something in this process, my thread is it, y'all. I am an Aurifil girl to the core. I piece and quilt with 50 weight cotton. It's a very fine thread, which means you can fit a ton of it in your bobbin. This is a huge pro if you're free motion quilting. Those of you who quilt with me already, you know how much thread free motion quilting can go through, right? So 50 weight thread's a nice fine thread. You can fit a lot of it on your bobbin, but it's also very strong, right? So while you can fit lots in the bobbin, you don't have a whole lot of thread buildup on your quilt. It also gets the job done in, kind of a mighty way, right? You're not going to have a lot of issues with this thread. In fact, I find it of all the threads I use to be the easiest to get my tension balance, and I have the fewest just breakages and things overall with it, even when things are going funky, right? I'm in love. I am in love. Sue, that is a great question. Do I use a different needle with batiks? Just jumping back a little bit. I don't. But I would make sure that it is a nice fresh needle because batiks are a tighter weave of fabric. And I would consider going up. I don't know that I would want to go up to a 16 because it's going to make a bigger hole. So if I'd be pretty likely to stick with a 14. If it was something that didn't have a lot of seams, I would consider a 12, right? Just it's a little bit less needle to get through that fabric, a little bit less hole. Right. Batiks, especially because of the way that they're made with the wax, you're more likely to see the hole until you wash that quilt. Now, it'll close up just like, any fabric once you wash it. But because it's a stiffer fabric, the hole's going to look more obvious when you're quilting in all likelihood. Right. So if you can get away with it, you could go down to a 12. I'd probably try to avoid going up to a 16 because of the whole visible hole thing. And I would make sure it's nice and fresh, so you're not having a lot of snags or anything going in and out. That's a great question. I love that question. Thank you, Sue. You have 2 different free motion quilting feet for your baby lock. Darius gives great advice. Try different feet. I love that. And that's exactly. Now, like I said, I'm very monogamous with my thread, but everything else I will encourage you. Try different things, right? Play around. Ask your friend if you can borrow her free motion quilting foot to see how you like it, etc. Love it. Love it. Gloves. I'm all about the gloves. Now, you don't need them, strictly speaking, but gloves do a couple of things for you. So these are my gloves. I got these as a freebie with a magazine that I purchased. The reason I like these is because of the color. If you're buying gloves, I recommend the Fawns and Porter. They're navy and white, and they're cotton. So they feel real good on your hands. But gloves do a couple of things. So first, they keep your hand oils and junk off your quilt. Right, now for your standard run-of-the-mill quilt that's going to get thrown in the wash as soon as the thing is bound, that's not a huge deal. But especially if you're working on something that's like a wall hanging or a show quilt, something that may not get washed immediately, if ever, right? Keeping those oils off your quilt will help reduce discoloration and things like that over time. Now, that's a long game kind of reason to use gloves. The short-term reason to use gloves is the grippies on them reduce strain on your hands big time. So this is especially important if you have any kind of arthritis or issues with your hands. It's going to keep things from getting too stiff. You don't have to hold your quilts as tightly when you've got that extra friction of the gloves. Okay. Like I said, I'm a huge fan. Play around with a couple of different brands. Machinger's also makes a very well-known glove. And if you're concerned even so about the gripping, I also use, I hope they're over here. I didn't put these in the slideshow, but these are called grip and stitch quilting discs, right? So they're literal like foam discs that are kind of grippy on the bottom. And these, you just lay your hand on them and use them to steer your quilt, okay? So something to help with the guidance of the quilt. I recommend gloves. You can start with a cheap pair of gardening gloves for this. It does not have to be super fancy, all right? Practice sandwiches. If you're going to be quilting, you got to have something to quilt on. This is a great opportunity for ugly fat quarters from the very back of your stash. for batting scraps, to use up funky things just for practice, right? Now, last week, Rhoda, hey babe. Last week we talked about basting, right? We talked about thread basting, pin basting, spray basting, homemade spray base, fusible batting, all the things, right? The other advantage of practice sandwiches, in addition to just having a low stress opportunity to put yourself through your paces and build up your skills before you work on a proper quilt, is that practice sandwiches provide an opportunity to try different methods of basting as well. So you can see what you like best, how it feels under your machine, etc. All right. Pen and paper. This is backwards a little bit. Some of you are like, why are we just not getting to pen and paper? But before you even work on your practice sandwich, I want you to practice your free motion quilting motifs on paper, okay? Paper is even less expensive and easier to come by. It's portable. It gives you an opportunity to sharpen your hand-eye coordination and all that muscle memory from literally anywhere before you even get on your machine. So it's a wonderful place to start. It's something that I emphasize a lot when I'm teaching free motion quilting, is to practice on paper first, then we move to a practice sandwich, and then we move to our final quilt, all right? But here's the thing, guys. Those are all wonderful, right? Machine, needles, thread, foot, gloves, practice sandwiches, paper. These are all the kind of accoutrements of a healthy quilting practice. But they're not actually the most important thing, all right? Oh, Jolene, decorating sounds so fun. Oh, my heavens. The most important thing for your free motion quilting journey is beyond these notions. And without it, you can't succeed at free motion quilting. You have to want it. All right, now why am I bringing this up? There's a couple of reasons. One, you may not want it, right? I know a few of you that are friends of mine that you love the look of free motion quilting, but you don't want it enough to put the work in. Right? Or maybe you don't even like the look of it. You're like, I really like my straight lines. Thanks. Like free motion quilting's not my jam. And you know what? That's awesome. Just like it's a healthy thing for me to be kind of scrappy and not super into notions, and for Sue to love notions and want to try all the things, right? And that tension, if you will, is a healthy thing in our community. It's a healthy thing for me to love free motion quilting and maybe for you to not. That's okay, right? But for some of you, you're thinking, I love the look of free motion quilting and I wish my quilts looked like that. But you have to want it enough to be willing to put in the work, or you're just going to experience frustration, right? And that might mean that you like it right now, but you're not ready to take the plunge and really learn about it, right? There's a couple of things that could be going on there. You have to want it enough to practice. You have to want it enough to get uncomfortable. And you have to want it enough to be willing to be pretty crummy when you first get started, right? Because here's the thing. All the notions in the world don't substitute practice. They don't substitute showing up and going through the bumpy bits of learning the new motif and figuring out how the heck you move from point A to point B and how to loop it back together and make it look nice, and how to go from, having feathers that just look kind of like awkward little Charlie Brown Christmas trees to these beautiful flowing things, right? Like, 'cause that process has to happen. It's a mountain you have to climb. And you can only grow if you're willing to feel awkward and uncomfortable when you try something new. This is the road to becoming a quilting rock star. All right. So if you have questions about notions or about wanting it, this is your moment. If you're loving this, I would love to see those hearts. But here's the thing. My money says that you want it. Right? I say that and you're like, oh my gosh, Holly, now you're kind of scaring me, right? But my money says that you want it, but I want you to own that you want it, right? That's the deeper thing here. I want you to own that, like, you need some of the things, you need some notions. There's a few key notions that really are valuable for this journey, but I also want you to own how much you want it. This is a total vulnerable moment, guys. Okay. So I had a moment this morning of having to own how much I want something, right? So one of my dear friends has been on a working sabbatical in Colorado for a month. Okay. Now she lives down inside the perimeter of Atlanta. So we live about an hour apart, even though we're both in the city in the city. She's actually in the city and I'm like up in the suburbs, right? but I don't see her super often. I see her maybe once or twice a month, but something about her being gone for the last like 4 weeks and not being able to see her, it's been really hard. I'm just going to be really honest, especially when John was out of town a couple of weeks ago. There were a couple of days when like I would have called her and been like, babe, can you come up? Like, I'm just lonely. Right. And so she gets back in town tonight, and we have on Friday planned to spend the whole day together. Right. And we're doing something I've never done before. And we're going to a proper salon. And she does this like, you know, fairly routinely, like your average woman. But this is new to me. We're going to a proper salon, and I'm getting my hair cut and highlighted. Surprise, by the way. It'll look really natural. Don't worry. I'm not doing anything crazy. But I didn't realize until this morning how much I was looking forward to it. I knew I was really looking forward to our time together. But John found out this morning that he's going to be out of town on Friday. And I was faced with the choice, right? I could either cancel my appointment with Lexa and cancel our day together and cancel this hair appointment and be like, whatever, like I never get my hair like professionally done anyway. I'll just ask John to trim it for me, you know, whatever. There goes that, right? Or I had to do some uncomfortable work to figure out the childcare situation because John was supposed to be home with the boys all day on Friday. And my mom and dad are going to take them for a little while, but like in the afternoon, John was going to be here. And I had to own how much I wanted not only this time with my friend, right? Because let's be honest, we could cancel the hair appointments and she would come hang out and I could still see her. But I also had to own how much I was looking forward to, am looking forward to getting my hair done, right? To trying something new and trying a new haircut and seeing how I like it, right? And if you had asked me 2 days ago, I would have said, yeah, I'm really looking forward to that. But this morning I had to own it, right? And I've shared with you guys before, I'm an Enneagram 3, right? And if that doesn't mean a whole lot to you, know that it means that like I love to be a high achiever and I don't like to ask for help, like at all. And having to like think of people that I know that I could ask to come watch my kids for a few hours, like I shed actual tears over the frustration of that, right? But I had to own it. I had to own that I'm looking forward to this thing. And as a result, like we found childcare and the friend who's going to watch the boys is so excited. And I'm so excited to get some time with her, like as a part of that, right? But you have to do that potentially uncomfortable work with free motion quilting, right? You have to not just say, I love how free motion quilting looks and I want my quilts to look like that. But if you're going to start on this goal, like Ivy said, that her next goal is to learn and to practice, especially as we head into 2020, right? Then you have to take that next step of saying, I not only like wish that my quilts looked like this, but I'm willing to work to make it so. And I'm going to step out of my comfort zone and I'm going to experience the challenges and the exhilaration of climbing this free motion quilting mountain, right? Of stepping out of just sending my quilt to the long armor or stepping out of just doing those straight lines and say, I'm going to do this thing and I'm going to become a quilting rock star, right? So with that, the obvious question now is like, okay, now that I have the supplies and I'm like owning that I want this and I'm recognizing my deep desire to learn how to free motion quilt, my deep desire to become a quilting rock star, like how do I do that? And as you probably know, if you've been around here for a hot second, if you're new, welcome. That's exactly why I created Free Motion Quilting Academy. And guys, we are less than a month away. A month from yesterday, enrollment will open for the first 2020 cohort of Free Motion Quilting Academy, which is an opportunity to work with me from being a nervous beginner free motion quilter to a confident intermediate quilter. And y'all, the climb up this mountain, it's a big one and it is worth the hike. All right. So right now, as I just mentioned, enrollment's not open, but you have the opportunity to get on the waiting list. And you simply click the link in the caption of this video or go to stringofstory.com/FMQ Academy. And you're simply raising your hand saying, I want to hear more about this as January 2nd gets closer. I really want my quilts to have free motion quilting on them. I'm going to gather the notions, but I'm also going to gather my own gumption and desire and be ready to check this thing out and maybe to jump in and actually make that hike with me. And because I know that even though it's coming really fast, that's a little while to wait. I want you to know that when you get on the waiting list for Free Motion Quilting Academy, I'm also going to send you my top 3 tips for successful free motion quilting. So you'll have the opportunity to go ahead and start looking through some of the resources that I have available so that when class starts in January, you will be ready to rock and roll. So you can get the tips and get on the waiting list at stringandstory.com/FMQ Academy. All right, my dears, that is our quick overview today of what you need for free motion quilting. It's not as many notions as you might think as we've covered during this time. I do want to give you guys one more opportunity. If you have questions about particular notions that I enjoy using, or if there's a notion that you found particularly helpful and you're wondering if I have thoughts on it, any of those things, do please feel free to jump in the comments and let me know. And also, if you have questions about getting signed up for the Free Motion Quilting Academy waiting list. So I'm going to take a quick sip of coffee because I know that there's a delay, and see if you guys have any more questions I can answer for you. Ivy, I love, love, love that you just like owned it. You're like, this is the thing I want to do. That is amazing. So many of you here. Oh, which, where did it go? Also, oh, yes. Oh, so Enneagram 3. Here, I'll type it in so you can see it. It's a personality profiling tool. I happen to be a 3. So for my Free Motion Quilting Academy folks who just graduated with me or who have graduated in previous cohorts, I know that the image is a little grainy. Let me pop this back down so you can just see me. Can you guys see? Look what arrived yesterday. So our enamel pins are finally here. I'm so excited. Here, you know what? I can actually pop this up. Dun, 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 dun. Ooh, there we go. So the enamel pins have finally arrived. I'm really struggling with keeping this in front of the camera. So my goal is to get these out to you guys before I leave for Iceland. Just so you know. But, all right, gadgets. Only keep out what you're using now. I love that tip, Sue. That is a great tip. I love it. All right, my dears, thank you so much for joining me today. I always love spending time with you guys. I'm so excited to have these live videos back. Thank you for bearing with me as I've moved them to Tuesdays. I know that's a little bit of a change up. And I'm so excited for all of you who have already begun your free motion quilting journey and are continuing to grow as quilters. For those of you who are in Free Motion Quilting Academy now and you're working your way up that mountain to experience what it feels like to be a quilting rock star. And for those of you who are looking forward to 2020, knowing that that is your year. It is your year that you're going to own how much you want to learn free motion quilting. You're going to own that you have the ability to do it, because you do, girlfriend. You do. I'm just thrilled to be part of this journey with you, and I'm so excited that Free Motion Quilting Academy is just around the corner. Now, just a reminder that we will be, oh, Luann, that's so exciting. Just a reminder, we will be having social hour this Saturday. So if you're not already part of the Quilting Rockstars Facebook group, hop over there, which, you know what? Let me grab a link for you really quick because I did not put that in the caption of this video. And I want to make sure that you have it. So if you're not already a member of the Quilting Rockstars, do come over and join us. We will have our social hour at 8 p.m. Eastern on Saturday night, hanging out, quilting on the things. And for those of you who are participating in the Finish the Decade Quilt Along, I will be announcing that winner soon. Yesterday, I had a great plan and it went totally sideways. So I'm getting there. I will have that information out. All right. Thanks for joining me, you guys. I will see you Saturday night. Have an awesome, awesome Tuesday.